Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you to We'll Bring the Popcorn, the ultimate film and TV podcast. It's over on Netflix. We have Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, so it got a limited theatrical run. Unfortunately, we didn't get it anywhere near us, but you know, if you enjoy Guillermo del Toro, you know the takes that he takes on things, and this is faithful to the most part to the Frankenstein story, but he makes plenty of changes because we're getting a different look at the monster. He's always been one with his monsters and everything else. There's some sympathetic to it that you're trying to see, well, it's not always their fault, or they could be more than just a creature and everything in here. And I will say I enjoyed it. Like it tells the basics of it. Starts off in the Arctic where this ship is, stuck in the ice. They can't get out. They see an explosion and they go over and check it out. And it's Victor Frankenstein is hurt and injured. And then the monster shows up, and we get Victor back on the ship telling his story to the crew, but we basically get this movie in kind of two halves. You have the first half is Victor's story from his perspective and how he feels about it, and then the second half of it is from the creature story. And overall, I think this was a solid tale. It's definitely different. It changes some of the relationships. It changes the overall feeling and acting of the creature. I mean, the creature does look a bit off-putting, but he's not as grotesque and horrific as others have been, because they're supposed to be like, he didn't ask to be created. It was Victor who's, after his mother's death, wants to try to cheat death. Like, he blames his father. It makes his father a bit more abusive and cold to him, but he sees his father as like the greatest doctor out there, and he couldn't cheat death for his mother. And so now he's made it his life's mission to try to solve death.
Yeah, and it's kind of the crux of his character, and you got to show some love here to Oscar Isaac, who plays Victor Frankenstein incredibly well. Like he really dives into and gets into the headspace of this really manic doctor who's just refuses to take no for an answer, kind of just like saying, no, like, death isn't the end. Death doesn't have to be a final sentence here, and you can kind of come back from it, right? And you see the grotesque way that he kind of works towards like putting things together and showing that, through the right amount of science and the application of science, which, as you all know, that far back in time that these stories takes place, people were very religious, and it was heavy emphasis that anything that isn't God's will is an abomination, that kind of thing. And you just can't you can't get past that for so many people. And he's the guy that's like, no, I have ways because of my brilliance and my scientific understanding that I can bring people back to life, and it's permanent. You're immortal. You can't die. Like, this is a permanent thing as long as you have this energy source and, the right combination of things to work, and you can make it. You're not going to necessarily be yourself, but you can be put together through elements of other people. Like, it was crazy. It's a fun take. I got to say that, the three people that do the most heavy lifting in this movie are, Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, obviously Jacob Elordi as the creature, who was, and in my opinion, he's brilliant in this movie. Like, he's fantastic in his take on this. And you also got Mia Goth as Elizabeth, who is basically in this weird relationship where she's marrying Victor's brother, but Victor's in love with her because she has kind of a similar scientific, type of mind and thinking and approaching things, but she's not in love with him. And it's kind of this this tragic story that, for Victor anyway, that the woman that he loves doesn't love him, kind of thing. And it's a really interesting take on it. And I personally love this movie. Like, I think the way they told the story was brilliant in two parts, and just kind of giving a little more humanity and a little more thoughtfulness to the creature. Because, more often than not, you see Frankenstein portrayed as just this mindless creature who's just violent for the sake of violence, kind of thing. And you get a lot more layered creature here with Jacob Elordi, and he's so good in this. And you get to see the journey that he goes on to learn to be able to communicate, and just the way that he learns about life and who he. It's a really interesting take that we hadn't really seen before, but this is a really fun story. I got a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, because in the original story, Elizabeth is Victor's wife, or Victor's fiance, that plays a big part with the monster. But yeah, in here they decided to make her the fiance of his brother, who kind of dislikes Victor in a way. Like, this is definitely about looking at Victor like he is the monster. He is the creature. He is the monster. And it doesn't shy away from some violence, graphic violence or things, especially if, because you get Victor, and also shows just how he is almost inhuman in a way. He's going to a hanging and he's looking at the guys before they get hung to be like, yeah, not you, just go up and die already. And like, okay, this one's got a strong back, I'm going to take him. And like, he's picking out
pretty morbid
bodies before they're even dead. And you get like, been a war and a big battle, and he's just siphoning through the bodies to pick like, oh, find me a head that's intact. And like, just of how he almost doesn't really care about life because he's so obsessed with death. And it touches on that, especially like when he meets Elizabeth. Even though you've switched that it's his brother's fiance, you've still got that, well, she's kind of bringing out a little bit of the humanity in me, because for once I'm actually interested in life than death. But he's still very, very much into death, because again, it starts off early on that he's like on trial to be talk about what he's been doing for his funding. And he brings half of a cadaver that he shows that he can bring to life, and everyone's just horrified and like, okay, what is this going on? Which I got to give it up to Guillermo for doing so much practical effects. Like, there's some CGI that's mixed in with it, but you can tell there's puppetry and animatronics and other stuff that's done with it, which if it was full CGI, there would have been a lot more problems with it. I will say I wasn't fully into, I love Christoph Waltz, but his additional character, Heinrich, he wasn't in the original story. He's added to this as kind of an arms dealer who is the financer of all of Victor's stuff. Now, there's a deeper story on why he wants to, finance Victor, but he also is added as Elizabeth's uncle, so there's kind of a tie all around. I don't think it added too much to it. I think Christoph was a little underused in that, because he's a brilliant actor.
Fantastic, yeah.
But I think it was kind of underused, because as soon as we get to an interesting point, then everything shifts and changes for it, that I don't know if you exactly needed him. And I get that you're trying to throw in kind of two different elements, where you're figuring out how he gets finance and how he's able to get this tower and get all the stuff that he needs to do it. But then it also adds in trying to look again at Victor's humanity. Like, how will he approach someone else in need that needs something out of him, and how he does it all. And I don't want to say he shouldn't have been in the movie, but it just didn't work as well as I hoped it would, because again, I love Christoph so much.
Yeah, it wasn't the best integration of a new character into the story, honestly, but you can put Christoph Waltz in anything, and he will elevate a film. And in the brief time that we get him in the movie, like, he does a fine job in it. I don't necessarily think he added enough gravitas to the film to really elevate it that much, but that's not necessarily his fault here. He was good with the direction that they gave him, but this is definitely more of a Victor and creature type story, because you get Elizabeth in here that's, kind of tries to be a little bit of a moral compass for Victor a little bit, like, what you're doing is wrong, and I'm trying to tell you what you're doing is wrong, and it's, trying to pull some humanity out of him a little bit here, when he's very much, like you said, straightforward, like, I know I'm the smartest guy in the room and what I'm doing is right and all of this stuff, and just kind of very inhumane with the way he does things, and very inhumane in the way he treats Frankenstein's monster here, the creature, like, very inhumane, and it gets pointed out, and then he eventually breaks free, and you kind of get the story to kind of turn on its head a little bit, where, like, Victor's he becomes obsessed with killing his own creation here, where he's trying to stop the creature, but has next to no success at that, because the creature has this ability to regenerate himself, and he doesn't get stopped easily. He's basically immortal. Like, you're trying to kill an unkillable creature, and it doesn't exactly go well for you, but it's fun, man. I really think it got better in the back half of the film, where it got to the creature's point of view, and you got to see the journey that it went on to becoming a friend to the old man and his family, and gaining that knowledge and reading it. One of the really funny like human moments that the creature has is when he's done reading all of the books that the man has, and he's just like, is this all the books that there is? Because he doesn't know any. He's just like, and the guy was just like, yeah, there's a couple more out there. Just like give him a little bit of hope to continue his education. But it was a really funny moment in there that was very lighthearted moments in this. It's a very dark and gritty and gruesome movie in a lot of ways, but it was just a little bit of levity in there that made me laugh. It was a fun moment.
I guess it definitely takes a shift, like when you get to that point where the creature has escaped and you go to his perspective on things where he's telling his side of it. It almost feels like a different movie in a way because it's slower paced and you have the creature kind of hiding out and figuring out and watching other humans and trying to see like how they act and how they are. And of course he gets attacked as well. And you get that, as you said, it's almost adding some of the monster verse into it because you give him these more regenerative powers that he's like pretty much unable to be killed, that he can heal his wounds and everything else. So it adds that monster verse side into it there. But yeah, you get more. It's about trying to show, well, is a creature always a creature? Are we looking at it in the wrong way that you instantly just want to grab your pitchforks and your torches and go after and kill it without even really knowing? Because that's kind of how Victor was. Like he created this creature and he was so happy about it. But then he sees that it's having trouble of really being able to speak and learn and kind of adapt and move on. So he gets frustrated and angry because he almost feels like it's a failure because he's not
evolving,
walking, talking, regular human being. And he's chaining him up and he's treating him like a prisoner and not treating him like a human. And that really escalates and causes a lot of the problems there. But then you get to see that, well, it's taking a bit more time, but you're starting to get that humanity in the creature and you're starting to see that he's able to start thinking and processing, and you're not just getting this out of control creature that's just maiming and killing everyone and everything, that there's a reason why he attacks. And if he's being attacked, he's going to, defend himself, but he's starting to think and process. So that's, as I expected from Guillermo, he's trying to give more layers, more to the creature than he does to like Victor Frankenstein, because mostly Victor is straight through. Like he's just, from his mom's death, he's obsessed with death and he cares about death more than life. And he wants to solve the problem of death. But the creature is just trying to figure out, how do I live? How do I be? Like, what am I? Right. How do I live this life? And yet Jacob Elordi just was a perfect guy to get because of his build and his height compared to the other actors in there. So you get that creature type of just look to him because he is so much bigger than everybody else. And I'm a little mixed on the makeup with it. Like it looks good, but it's also like the purplish outlines of the muscles and everything else. Like I get why it's in there, but at times it looks like a costume more than like his skin until he really starts healing and you're seeing him look a little more humanist and it gets good. But early on, it looks like, well, you just drew all over his body, which in a way it was, but it did look a little off-putting with the color palette. Like I get what he was doing with it, but the color palette threw me off just a little bit with how he originally looked when you're trying to make it look like this is his skin, this is his body, these are his muscles and everything else. It almost looked a little more cartoonish than like realistic.
This is where your design background's coming. I can hear you talking in works. I can hear you talking in work speak right now, and I'm trying really hard not to laugh at you when you do it.
You used the wrong hex code on that purple. It should have been a darker hue. I was waiting
for you to hit that, #CO4F or whatever.
Pantone colors. Come on.
Yeah, just like come on. But just like the palette color, it's wrong, overall.
Like I didn't dislike the design, but at times for me, being a designer, I'm looking at it, it looked a little too unnatural, as in like I can tell that's a costume and a suit and prosthetics and stuff put on him.
Yeah, you're just thinking about it practically in a very unpractical way, which I appreciate. But I digress. I don't disagree with you though. I think it took a little bit to get into it, but man, I still like I'm more forgiving of that just because of how solid the story is. Like the story is amazing. Like they do a really great job of adding heart and layer and depth to this inherently violent creature, and you get more of that depth, you get more of the intelligence, you get more of an evolution for that character throughout the story as he's learning to become more humane, and he gets to that, he becomes more human as time goes on, and he kind of it's a really fun take. It's basically like, it's almost the equivalent of the Hulk becoming Smart Hulk in real time. You know what I'm saying? Like very, very similar to that, right? Like, because he has this freakish strength that is just unmatched by anything you could see, and he starts gaining that empathy. He starts gaining the desire to fit in, where more of the human element starts to take over for him, and it's a really fun journey that he goes on in the movie. And it's a long movie. Like I didn't realize it was going to be as long of a runtime as it was. It's over 2.5 hours. Like it's a 2.5 hour movie, but it doesn't really at any point feel like it drags on either, because you get the duality of the two halves of the story, right? You get the first half, Victor half, and then you get the creature side of things. And it's really cool how they kept coming back from like a single point in time to branch out and tell the story of how we got there, and that's kind of where it goes from. Because like you said, you get the setup for the end of the movie at the beginning of the movie, right? Where you get the ship of people, and this all stems from a boat being stuck in an iceberg to try to get out and get back into the sea, right? And that's kind of the whole crux of it, to bring these elements all together. And you're telling a story on a boat about things that have already happened. And it's a really fun way of telling the story, because it's like, okay, now we got here, but how did we get here? Like I really like how that was set up as well, and it's just fun, man. I'd fun watching this.
That's what I love about Del Toro, is his practicalness when it comes to, like, even though I nitpicked a little bit of the monster design, it evolved and got better, and I could see what he was doing. At first, it was a little like his skin almost looks too bright, but as you see his healing and you see things changing, that it works really well. But he also built an entire ship, because he called it a character, that this is an important part, and if we have the ship being CGI, then you're not going to really appreciate as much. For the bits and scenes that were in there, like, it plays an important part, but it's not a very long sequence when you put all the time together of the ship. But they built a full ship to be able to film it on. But everything, like Victor's castle, the tower that he uses, is, that kind of courtroom scene where he's being talked about, like, there's so much brilliant practical set design, where everything looked, and the costume design, there's hints of beautiful. Like down Elizabeth's spine, you could see the threads that make it look like a spinal column, and there's hints within all the characters' clothing and designs that has something that's a little connecting to the world that they're in, and just really brilliant practical set and clothing and other designs that really kept you in this world and this universe. And even when you get to the infamous, lightning rod towers and everything, you felt it and you saw it, and it looked practical and real how you were doing it all. And he's just a master of being able to take the Gothic and taking this look at like creatures, but you actually feel more sympathetic to the creature by the end of his stories, because you're seeing them from a different angle. And like I said, it's authentic to the Frankenstein story in the bones of it, but he changes plenty of it. There's even, which I don't want to spoil too much here, but there's a big change between Victor, Elizabeth, and the monster, of how things play out there, that they change, one big thing that happens there, because you're supposed to be seeing Victor is the, everyone for the longest time, when you think about Frankenstein, that Frankenstein was a monster. No, it was always the doctor. Yeah. But in a way, yes, he is the monster. And it kind of tied those threads together really well. And I mean, you can nitpick about changing some core things, but the story itself changed. Like, when it was originally written, a decent amount of Elizabeth stuff was, I think she was adopted and supposed to be a cousin, but they changed that to that she was just straight adopted in like the 30s and stuff. So the story itself and publications has changed. So I'm not as nitpicky as him in making some of these changes that works for the type of Frankenstein story, of creature story that he was trying to tell. Yeah. And I think he was pretty well successful with that.
Yeah, and he's just brilliant in framing all of that. And he's just such a good visual storyteller, just as well as he is a practical, dialogue storyteller, right? Like, he really has a way of bringing those elements to life on film in a way that really does transport you into the world that you're going into, and you get that full immersive experience. At the end of the day, I'm bummed that we didn't get to see this in theaters, because I think it would have been awesome in theaters. Like, I have a kind of makeshift surround sound in my house, and I was watching it, and it felt neat, but it would have felt, I think, even better in the theater, getting that full sound immersion as well as the visual immersion that you get from it. And I really wish we could have gotten that experience, but man, it was really good for what we've got. And man, just getting Guillermo del Toro on a Netflix movie is insane, because he's just such a phenomenal director and storyteller, and just about everything he's ever touched has been brilliant, in my opinion. He's one of my favorite directors, and getting his take on this and just diving into it and telling it in the way that only he can, just fantastic job doing that, in my opinion. And it's one of my more favorite takes on this genre, outside of the old classic black and white, Frankenstein type movies and stuff. This is one of the better takes I've seen on it, and some phenomenal performances. Like I said, Oscar Isaac was phenomenal as Victor. Jacob Elordi was incredible. It really must suck to be just incredibly handsome and 6'5". That's insane, but he does phenomenal as the creature too. Like, he's so good in this. I really think he's probably the star of this movie, really. At the end of it was just an incredible performance by him.
And if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you get a few Game of Thrones actors in here playing a few different roles, which they were, really fantastic in that. But yeah, Guillermo is just such a unique storyteller with things, because he has a different view of the world, of these stories that he's telling, that you could go in and just do a straight adaptation of, Mary Shelley's book, but you're getting a unique look from kind of the more of the creature, and you're getting that, and I appreciate that. Like, yeah, Frankenstein's been done in so many different ways, from the MonsterVerse to the straight adaptations to TV, and you also got like Young Frankenstein, which is beloved by a lot of people, of doing a comedic take of the monster, and I'm always will have "putting on the Ritz" stuck in my head of Frankenstein saying "putting on the Ritz" and everything, but it's just he's such a unique storyteller, and the way he does it, like Pan's Labyrinth and other things he's done, is just such a unique way. I want that third Hellboy movie to come out, because I want to see him finish what he started with the first two. But he's a brilliant director and storyteller, because of he goes for the heart and the soul and looks for those different angles that you may not always get with those other adaptations. And I was excited when I heard he was doing Frankenstein, and it didn't let me down.
Yeah, for sure. It's a phenomenally well done movie that I will go back and revisit. This is going to probably be in my Halloween rotation moving forward. Just a fantastic movie that it doesn't even necessarily need to be Halloween time when I watch it, but coming out around this time was very fitting for sure too.
Yeah, so Frankenstein is a fantastic adaptation by Guillermo del Toro. He gets at the heart and the soul of the creature and the doctor, and flips a few things on its head. There's a few characters and a few beats that it could either be shortened or they didn't exactly need in here, but I think overall he was very successful in getting to the heart and the soul of the story, of the creature, of just kind of how the doctor may be more of the creature than the creature is, and getting to see that heart and humanity of the monster. I'm giving it a solid 8 with this one, as I did with Predator Badlands, because I think it was done in such a brilliant way. Practical effects, great sound design, great costume design, that all tied to each other. Jacob Elordi was great as the creature, of giving us that heart and humanity, while Oscar Isaac gave us another brilliant performance of playing a doctor who cares more about death than he does with life. And I think Mia Goth was a good addition there as Elizabeth, who didn't get as much as you maybe would hoped, but she is the core between the creature and Victor, and I think it all came together really well.
Yeah, I'm going to give it just a slightly better grade. I'm giving it an 8.5, and that's kind of where I landed on it. I love Guillermo del Toro. He's an instant upgrade to almost any type of story you could tell. But what I really love is the immersive experience that you get in his films, and this is on full display here too. So you get just this dive into this world and the sets, like you talked about, and the brutality that it's not afraid to get brutal when it needs to, and gets that heart and that warmth and that depth, the storytelling. You get a phenomenal story that's really told in 2 parts from 2 different perspectives. Like you said, you get the Victor Frankenstein half of it, you get the creature half of it, but you also get to see the creature in a more humane light as he kind of goes on his own journey of self-discovery and how he fits into this world that he never asked to be a part of. And it's a really well done visual spectacle that we get from this, with a really solid story to go along with it. Like you said, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's still a really, really good offering, because where it has some minor things that are, you can kind of be nitpicky about it, overall it's a phenomenal story, worth your time to go and watch, and carve out the time to watch it. It's really good. If you're into these types of stories, you don't have to be into the monster-y type stories, but it tells it in a way that's palatable on so many levels for people that I think a lot of people will get enjoyment out of it. It's like, we've already talked about the phenomenal performances in it too, and just everyone did such a good job in making this story that I have to land on 8.5. It's slightly better than Predator Badlands in my opinion. It's a more complete movie in my opinion. Like,
oh yeah, it's hard to compare the two, even though I gave it an 8, the same as I did Predator Badlands. It's 2 different things, because Predator Badlands was about the fun journey and rewatchability, while this one was about the depth and the acting prowess and the practical sets and just how they created this world that you really wanted to thrive in. So it's like, I gave them both 8s, but they're 2 very different 8s.
Sure, and just, man, Guillermo del Toro is so good, man. I was excited when he got into this, because he does these types of films really well, and you could tell he really sunk his teeth into this one, and it was, what he gave us was a really phenomenal film that glad we watched, and definitely has a high rewatchability for me.
Yeah, so Frankenstein is out on Netflix now. Check it out. If you got to see it in theaters, come let us know, because we were willing to see. I saw some stills of people in IMAX seeing it on the IMAX screen. We wished we could have got it around here, but you can watch it anytime on Netflix.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio room on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.